Hello, I want to go over a couple of the moral codes of the Orthodox Catholic. We're not talking about the mainstream Catholic or the Catholic that has modernized their religion, and there is a scriptural basis, scriptorial basis, or scriptural basis for modernizing Catholicism. I know that many of our atheists only believe that an orthodox interpretation of Catholicism is the only way that you can read scripture. But let's refer to the Orthodox Catholic way, the Orthodox Catholic belief. Okay. And the three moral axioms that the Catholicism emphasizes. Orthodox Catholicism. Okay. We're not talking about most people who claim to be Catholic, who claim to be Catholic, and I'm not saying that sarcastically or with the what I should say, the intimation that they are not truly Catholics. I'm just saying that most who claim to be Catholic, usually that are non-priests and simply are everyday people who go to the Catholic Church. This message is not directed toward them. It's directed toward the Orthodox Catholic. And the Orthodox Catholic in general believes as three moral axioms that are controversial. Anti-abortion in every single circumstance. Doesn't matter if the woman is raped. Okay. Contraception in every single circumstance. It doesn't matter if it's destructive. In what they would call the temporal condition. That means it's finite. Even if you live 100 years, your life is still finite on earth. So even if you suffer based on not using contraception, it is still right because God commanded it implicitly in his book. I think that they use some verse in the Old Testament. There's some verses that I'm sure that they can use. I'm sure you can find ways to justify within the biblical reading this moral axiom. So you have abortion, contraception, divorce is the third one. An Orthodox Catholic and even an Orthodox Protestant believes there's no such thing as divorce. God has in his mind one person, obviously straight, according to their orthodoxy, that you are supposed to spend your life with. Okay? There are no conditions to break this bond. None. So you have divorce, abortion, contraception. There was another one. Women allowed as priests. No women are allowed as priests because of scriptorial justification. Okay, so that's your fourth one. All of these moral tenets emphasize one thing that they share similar to the Protestants, even though they do not interpret the Old Testament literally. Okay, even though they may not believe Moses divided the Red Sea. Some of them do, perhaps. This illuminates the essential trait that the saved or the striving to be saved have against those who are unsaved. Trust. Trust in God's laws that they exist and they are to be followed no matter how difficult they are, no matter how impractical they are in our quote-unquote material world. You are supposed to trust unconditionally the laws that are stated, whether you understand them or not. The apologist always says you will find out the reason when you are saved. Do not question, in the sense that the question, if it doesn't receive an answer, it creates doubt. You can only question in the sense of being curious of why the law is there. Okay, those four tenets. Now, let's go back to the sophisticated Orthodox Catholic who believes in evolution, who believes that the Old Testament is metaphorical and has religious truth. Is this sophisticated Orthodox Catholic that takes philosophy, understands science, is he truly different, fundamentally different than the Pentecostal, in many ways, a Pentecostal Christian who is vocal and evangelical about his faith? My answer is simply no, they're not. Let's take, for example, to test the Abraham and Isaac story. And the Catholics believe that this may be a story. Some of them just don't believe it. They believe that this is a story that reflects religious truth. Okay, and we had a Protestant and a Catholic debate this. Matthew 4:19 believes this is a literal truth of God, and he thinks it's insulting for you not to take this literally. The Catholic only disagrees only in the sense that it's not true, that it didn't actually happen. But he doesn't disagree that the story of trust in God is an absolute axiom, absolute trait of being saved, an essential absolute trait that needs to be had for any individual to be saved. That's what he agrees on. But Matthew 4:19, that's not good enough. Okay. And when we hear these things like, Matthew 4:19 argue about, oh, this is literal. You must believe that this is literal. You must believe the flood is literal. When he argues those things, okay, sometimes we forget that the Catholic still believes in the religious truth in those stories and the axioms that he or she uses to justify absolute anti-abortion, absolute anti-contraception, absolute anti-suicide, absolute anti-suicide, euthanasia, anti-euthanasia. They are absolutely against that. Absolute anti-divorce. Those things are based on the foundation of those stories, of the religious truth of those stories. That the bottom line is this: you trust God no matter if it goes against your own reasoning. Period. You trust the people who gave you the message that supposedly claim what God is, based on trust. Yes, they'll use circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is meaningless. I'm not even going to go into the circumstantial evidence. The bottom line is that trust. Trust for the Orthodox Catholic is as strong as the Orthodox Pentecostal. They're arguing over whether the Bible is literal. They're arguing over rituals. But do not make a mistake that the Orthodox Catholic is very, very similar in essence to the Protestant when it comes to what is the essential trait of salvation. The essential trait of salvation to the Orthodox Protestant, the Orthodox Catholic, is trust in God. Those three words, trust in God, which is reflected in Scripture. It's reflected in a certain interpretation of Scripture. That's simple. That is where the schism comes between the atheist worldview, or a natural worldview, a scientific worldview, and a theist Christian worldview, or an Orthodox Christian worldview. Now I'll bring up lastly. Well, I actually got to go. But here's one more comment. No, actually, I'll leave that comment later on. Have a nice day.